Welcome into I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentri. This is our part two. This is our NFC Championship reaction show. We did the AFC first. Go check that out. That's why you got to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff so you stay connected. Don't miss a single thing. But Tyson, our Philadelphia Eagles are playing in the Super Bowl after destroying the Washington Commanders. 55-23. They put up the double nickel. The Michael Jordan. They put up 55 in the NFC Championship game. All those Commander fans, I heard there's supposed to be this takeover in the stadium, all the Commanders, and they get just kicked out like they should have. How about that?
Brad was telling me to not let my bias show through on this pod, and that's how he starts this thing off, man. Unbelievable stuff from the kid, really.
No, I'm excited. We'll take a look at this through some actual analytical lenses here and just kind of discuss what we saw. And then we'll talk about the Eagles and their domination and kind of what it means going forward. But, later in the week, we're going to start previewing the Super Bowl. We got a lot of stuff we want to get to. We got a lot of content coming your way. But Tyson, this was a game that we, in our preview show, said the Eagles should win comfortably. And I know a lot of people are on the Commanders. It's like, well, Jayden Daniels is playing so good in the divisional thing. We said it. Offensive line, even when they were hurt, Eagles. Defensive line, Eagles. Linebacker play, listen, we love Bobby Wagner as future Hall of Famer. I'll take these guys and Zach Bond over what the Commanders have. Secondary, Eagles. Wide receivers, Eagles. Running back, Eagles. The only spot that we could say maybe was the quarterback. Jayden Daniels been really good. Jalen Hurts was special. 20 of 28, 246, a touchdown. Oh, by the way, 3 more on the ground. I know people are like, oh, Merchant or that. Sorry, I thought scoring points mattered here. That's important too. And so this was a game that the Eagles dominated. And this didn't necessarily surprise us too much based on our breakdown. But I know you were a little bit nervous, so I want to hear your thoughts on this thing overall.
Yeah, it was a nice reminder from the football gods that momentum and destiny do not exist in the sport. And you spend so long kind of taking in everybody, because like you said, everybody was on Washington. Jayden Daniels is an awesome, super fun story. Dan Quinn comes in and they get the stink of Dan Snyder off. Hats off for making the NFC Championship game. But if you ever... I'm just kidding. There's a lot of little brother stuff where it was like, why are these guys popping so much shit this week? We didn't think about you. This is crazy. But no, they played awesome. There were multiple times in this game that was, things were kind of teetering a little bit. The Commanders come out 17 plays, 18 plays, whatever it was on the first drive, get to a 4th and 3 or 4th and 5 and take a field goal. After being super aggressive, we were texting during the game. I didn't like it from Dan Quinn and company. You thought it was smart. I would have ended up going there. I thought that, the thing before the game, well, we don't want to act like we're playing with house money. This is your rent money. And it's like all that stuff is well and good in the locker room, but you got to put your balls on the table every single time you can in this game because you are outgunned. And that's, to me, kicking the field goal there was just kind of the start of the slide. And Saquon Barkley takes the first touch to the house for the Eagles. And then the Eagles defense started forcing turnovers, and Washington hung around. And right before the half, it was with 4 minutes before the half, it was maybe Washington's going to make a game out of this. It's 14-12. Philadelphia scores. Philadelphia doesn't score coming out of the halftime break, and it's Washington's going to make a game out of this. And then boom, that Eagles defense jumps up and bites you again, and it was off to the races. So for as much smack as kind of was put on the Eagles team's plate for everybody, you're hearing Julian Edelman in the pregame. I've never seen a team win with this much drama. There is no drama inside the locker room. Amongst the guys in the locker room, there hasn't been drama all year. It's WIP, it's the national media, it's Philly media that's making all this stuff up. These guys have played like this 17 times. They've won 17 games this season, and so maybe it was going to happen this way, but winning by 32 points definitely kind of sent a message.
Yeah, it really did. And that was the mindset that they had. And when we were previewing this game, Tyson, you said it felt like the Eagles really wanted this game. And it felt like they knew that they were going to kick their ass. And they did. And they said, let's make a statement. And they didn't look back. Like you said, there were a couple times it got close, and it was always a singular play made by somebody on the Eagles. And so you went through it. I'm going to just add to it a little bit here because you mentioned Washington goes down, scores a field goal, and it was like, oh, man, this could be the classic thing. 7 minutes, Washington's been doing that to everybody. And then Saquon Barkley, 1 play, 60 touchdown. It was like, whoa, okay. All right, Jayden Daniels back out there, and they're moving the ball a little bit, 35. They get it up to the 48, and then all of a sudden, boom, fumble. Eagles get the ball. They go score a touchdown. They're up 14-3. And it was like, wow, this thing really is kind of getting out of control. Now, Tyson, I will say, Washington goes down. They kick a field goal. It's like, okay, 14-6. Eagles score a touchdown here. This game is over. And we've seen that. It's been in the past. Jake Elliott misses the field goal. And I literally was in my head like, this is going to be a big play. You can't miss those field goals. You can't take those sacks. Although it wasn't necessarily his fault, but like those are the things that was going through my head. Washington goes down and scores a touchdown 14-12. They missed a 2-point conversion to tie it. And that's really when it was like, man, this is back to being a game. Eagles go score a touchdown, fumble on the kickoff. Eagles go score a touchdown, 27-12. And I was like, all right, Eagles are breathing again. Give up the field goal. It's halftime. Okay, 3 and out. Touchdown for the Eagles, 34-15. Sure, Washington goes and scores a touchdown. Eagles punt, and then another fumble. That was blouses. That was the game. There are just moments where this team has risen to the occasion before. It happened here multiple times, and then people say, oh, it's lucky and this and that. This has been something they've done all season long. And we talk about, what does Nick Sirianni do? The Austin Eckler punch out, I thought the broadcast did a good job of pointing out. Aaron Andrews, shout out. This is something that Nick Sirianni is teaching the team. Like, this is what you should be doing. Punch out the ball when they're getting up because they're not covering up. They're trying to get up. The ball's going to be loose. And I thought that was excellent.
Did you catch that when Tom Brady said Austin Eckler had little baby hands, little tiny, tiny hands? That was a crazy move.
Well, Brady, I thought was great in this game too.
I do too. I mean, we're not talking about that today, but I do want to say that maybe everybody like jumping on his back, or the same people jumping down Nolan Smith's throat for being a bust after a year, because boy did he show up when it mattered. And this Eagles defensive line just took away the run game like completely from this Washington unit. Now Jaden Daniels had the scramble for a touchdown. He had some other moments kind of outside of structure. Those things are going to happen. That's what happens. Like when you play a guy of this caliber, but B-Rob wasn't able to get it going. Austin Eckler wasn't able to get it going. They couldn't, like, Washington to get a play over 20 yards, according to the broadcast, but that Terry McLaurin slant touchdown felt like it was 45 yards to me as a fan watching that thing. Really, really great game by this Philadelphia Eagles defense, and another feather in the cap of, because this Washington offense was elite, all season long for the most part, outside of the 3 games where Jaden Daniels hurt his rib and they went on a little bit of a skid there. But besides that, they killed everybody. They just put 50 points on Detroit, and the turnovers are opportunistic, and you can't expect that game over game. But Brad, let's get to the point with the Eagles defense where they do just take the ball away.
Yeah, no, completely. And it's I think there wasn't much to react for this game, so I want to talk about a little bit more Eagle-centric, and we'll let Tyson's bias kind of go through here after I get mine off the top. But this is clearly something that's been taught, or there's a focus from this team. And like you said, are people saying, well, that's lucky? At a certain point, like the Peanut Tillman punch and the way they did it in the Chicago Bears back then, that wasn't luck. That was something that was being taught. That's something that the players were going about and doing. I think the Trayvon Diggs pick sixes and the Deron Bland pick sixes, okay, you can get some luck. That's some luck stuff here. But the punch out for the fumbles and all that thing, I think that's a little bit more towards being taught and something that there's a clear idea or mentality or an ethos of this Eagles defense. So they're going to try to punch at the ball, and they're really good at it, and it's affecting opposing teams.
Yeah, it's violence too. Like they were hitting from the very opening whistle. Quinyon Mitchell, whether it was him sticking Terry McLaurin on a screen pass that went nowhere, and that was like a huge part of Washington's game plan against Detroit. Was like, hey, we're winning every time we get the ball outside of the numbers here. We're winning, and they weren't able to do that to Philadelphia. And on the odd occasion that they did hit something that way was when the fumbles were forced. Austin Eckler was out that way. Diami Brown was kind of more over the middle when he caught the football. But at the end of the day, this is what the Philadelphia Eagles have done all season long since the bye week. And so for a team that got a bye in week 5 and had to start their season in Brazil to really, that's a crazy month and a half to start the year. And then they've kind of locked in. They've lost, 2 games or 1 game from that point. That was the Washington Commanders a couple weeks ago when Jalen Hurts gets knocked out. This is a team that's been rolling over everybody for the better part here of 3 months.
Tyson mentioned Nolan Smith. I'm going to do this now because this is the last time that I can be guilted into an apology here. I was one of the ones that Tyson said I was jumping too soon. I was texting him. I'm like, maybe he's a bust. I don't know. It's not working. So I'm fully repenting and saying, Nolan Smith, I love you. You're one of my favorite players in this defense right now. this is I'm excited for this journey of you being a Philadelphia Eagle. I hope you become a leader of this defense. I'm no longer feeling bad for my earlier take now. That is off the table. But no, I mean, all joking aside, looking at this Eagles defense and this defensive line. So Jalen Carter was dominant. I want to say in this one, like not Aaron Donald-esque, where he's just like getting off double teams and still getting like
not in counting stats, probably.
Right. But he was affecting the game. But Tyson, you can't just have the one guy. Like, you need other players to step up. And in the playoffs, it's been Nolan Smith. I mean, he's been excellent. And his speed is allowing him to chase after these quarterbacks. We saw him get after Jaden Daniels. He's had sacks outside the pocket in the past. And, the other thing, Tyson, I want to point out, how about 𝐬𝐿EX Hunt? 5 tackles, 4 of them solo. This guy's a rookie. He has to come in because Brandon Graham got injured. I think he's been spectacular. Nolan Smith, the sack, the tackle for loss, 4 tackles, 2 solo, had a QB hit. That's been really good. Moro Ujima, 3 tackles, 1 of them being solo. Milton Williams, 2 tackles, 1 solo. Jordan Davis, that massive sack. This entire defensive line is bringing it, man. And Jalen Carter, only 2 total tackles. Really? Is that what we're going to do here? Oh, I just had 2. No, he was great this entire game. And so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the Eagles dominating the trenches. It's not just one guy. Like, Carter gets the headlines, Smith's been getting the sacks, but it's really everybody who gets rotated in there that's been super impressive.
And on the other side of the ball, the offensive line for the Eagles, they played a heck of a game for starting the game with a center who's really your guard. And Landon Dickerson deserves a bunch of kudos, whether you're an Eagles fan or not. I mean, to watch a guy gut through something like that. At one point, he's waving 𝐾𝐨 off. I'm going back out there. And then 𝐾𝐨, the actual starting center, flips the script at halftime and says, no, Landon, I got this in the second half. And he's immediately identifying blitzes. They were really good. Dan Quinn had to bring a lot of pressure a lot of times to get to Jalen Hurts twice. And this was something that he struggled with against the Rams, obviously, and a little bit against the Packers, and he struggled at times this season. You mentioned 20 for 28. 4 of those were the right play throwaways, and that's something we've been begging for from Jalen Hurts throughout this season, and a couple missed opportunities on those blitzes, and those are going to happen with Jalen because look, he's not Patrick Mahomes and he's not Josh Allen, but he is going to a second Super Bowl by age 26, and he did make it at age 24, and he has a chance to slay the dragon. So I think that this whole thing comes down to trench work by the Philadelphia Eagles, and you mentioned 𝐬𝐿EX Hunt. Brad, Howie Roseman gets a lot of credit from outside people and Eagles fans too, but one thing Eagles fans were saying for a long time, up until really the last 3 years, like, hey, we got to hit on some of these early draft picks. Like, it's cool to have the rosters as stacked as they are, but we haven't hit on anybody. You mentioned 𝐬𝐿EX Hunt. Quinyon Mitchell has an interception. Cooper DeJean was awesome. Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter were really good. Landon Dickerson, Tyler Steen is playing guard for you in a big moment. It's like 11 or so out of his last 13 first picks and within the first 3 rounds have been impact players for a team trying to go to the Super Bowl. And I only say that because there is a little bit of a conception out there. I think this is where the bias shows through, is that the Philadelphia Eagles were the older team. No, they were the more experienced team. They're younger than Washington, by birth certificates, as people say. And they're a bottom or top 8, I believe, youngest team in the league. And that's with Brandon Graham, Darius Slay, and Lane Johnson. This team's going to be around.
For sure. And Tyson, all that kind of warps into this on the last point here. The Eagles were able to run for 7 rushing touchdowns. It's like the first time, I think, in 1940.
How many did the Cowboys have this season?
Oh, I don't know. You got the
6.
You got the receipts. They had 6. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, that is great. Oh my goodness. So how about Saquon Barkley getting just 15 carries? I love it. Don't run him into the ground. This was great. I mean, you got. Unfortunately, Kenny Gainwell. He got the concussion. We'll see what his status is. He'll be fine. He got whacked on that. Will Shipley, shout out. I mean, just unhitched the wagon a little bit, and you got a highlight reel, but I think it was funny because Brady got a comment on it. But, this is the stuff. So Hurts, 10 rushes. Some of those are the sneaks. Got a couple scrambles, but mainly sneaks, mainly scrambles. The fact that they did this damage, 229 on the ground, 6.4 a pop, with Saquon Barkley only carrying the ball 15 times, it just goes to show you how dangerous, how dominant this Eagles team was in this game.
Yeah, and it's like we've been saying it all year, and we're not the only ones that when you have A.J. Brown, who had an excellent game, and you had Devontae Smith, who had a really good game, and probably could have had more if the game called for it. Dallas Goedert was excellent, and Saquon Barkley was awesome. Like, you're not beating this Philadelphia Eagles team when all of those guys are clicking. And so it's not on the Washington Commanders here for not, winning this football game so much. It was like, this was just a culmination of, in my view, the most talented roster in the league playing their best game at the right time. And Washington's got a ton of room to grow and a ton of time to get back here. But Brad, as we kind of talk about them later on in this episode, it's really hard to get back this deep in the playoffs. And I just want to caution everybody out there that's like, well, they'll be back in the Super Bowl. We thought the Lions were a shoe-in for the NFC title game. We've been waiting for the Bills and the Ravens and the Bengals to break back through this Kansas City team. It's really hard to get back here.
Yeah, and let's go to the Commanders, because I think a lot of people are like, all right, we get it. Eagles, we get it. So let's talk about the Commanders. Impressive season. 12-5, rookie quarterback, first your regime head coach of Dan Quinn. He's been there before. He's taken a team to the Super Bowl. We know the resume. It's impressive. Cliff Kingsbury didn't regress or fall off in the second half. This is a team full of veterans. And like Tyson said, everybody thinks they're young because, a rookie quarterback and Terry McLaurin. But the reality is he got a ton of guys. And Tyson, they're going to have a ton of changes here. And you told me to look this up and kind of go through who's going to be a free agent after the year. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to highlight some of the names. Dyami Brown, the wide receiver, he was a guy here. Jeremy Chin played huge games for him on the back end. Zach Ertz, who just caught 30 balls, it felt like in this game. He's a free agent. Zane Gonzalez, their kicker. I mean, good God. Jeremy McNichols, running back, not a huge loss there, but Bobby Wagner, the linebacker, punter Tressway, and I thought Olamide Zaccheaus, former Eagle, I thought he stepped up for the Commanders at times. So there's a lot of turnover. Now, the idea was you kind of bolster this roster with some veterans, kind of bring in a good culture, kind of change things from the past, and then you kind of go over, move to a little bit more of the younger approach moving forward and let Adam Peters kind of do his magic in the front office. Tyson, but that also brings huge wave of variance because you have no clue how those young guys are going to play. Like, Jaden Daniels going to be pretty good. Terry McLaurin's going to be pretty good. But what about the young guys you draft? What if they can't play? All of a sudden, you're talking about a hurdle that you got to clear, and we don't know. And like you said, it's not a given to be back at this point. It's really hard to win games in the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, losing 12 guys who play over 33% snap share for you, and like the punter, and they're not going to lose all of these guys, but it is going to be interesting because like Bobby Wagner's making $6.5 million. Did he earn more than that from somebody else? Is he going to want to come back to Washington? Granted, they got $90 million in cap space, but there is a sentiment out there that's like, this is the worst roster that Jaden Daniels is going to have for the next 4 or 5 seasons. Well, we thought that, about Joe Burrow or Brock Purdy or Jared Goff or whoever else of these rookie deal quarterbacks you want to mention that weren't able to get back to the show on those rookie deals. So, look, they got to hit some home runs, and maybe that's grabbing T. Higgins. But some of these guys we talk about, like you brought up Terry McLaurin a couple times, he's not exactly a spring chicken. It's just nobody's been paying attention to Washington for a long time. And so you look up and you go, he's 28, 29 years old. That doesn't make any sense. But look, I think that Washington absolutely has the ability to get back here. We saw Jaden Daniels emerge as, like, at worst, a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the NFC. I'm more inclined to say, he should be number 1 with some of the things that he did. I mean, this is a rookie going forward. I'm projecting a little bit of growth here as well, but they're going to be fine. But you do have to take advantage of these opportunities. And that's why a little bit some of the conservatism by Dan Quinn to start this game was like, what are you doing? You're going to get blown out here and you're not getting back.
So I think there's a lot of things that people are saying. I want to address the Jaden Daniels thing first. We are literally 1 year removed from everybody saying C.J. Stroud had the best rookie season they've ever seen. And then what happened this past year? Even the Stroud defenders, even then you have to be like, he took a little step back. That's fine. That's what happens in the NFL. This is the National Football League, a.k.a. not for long, a.k.a. coaches, players get paid to stop you if you're on the offensive side of the ball. That's what happens. So Jaden Daniels could take a step back. He could regress. That's perfectly in the arc of things to happen. How would that happen? I don't know. They figure out the Cliff Kingsbury offense like they have for a long time, or they figure out his tendencies.
They don't convert 70% of third downs and fourth downs.
Exactly. That regression is out there. And Tyson, I'm not wishing anything on this kid. We're Eagles fans. We do not risk injury upon anybody. That is a major risk here, folks. That is really out there. If you're going to run that body frame against these guys in the NFL that many times, you're playing with fire. I mean, at least Lamar Jackson's a little bit thicker, and Josh Allen's thick. Jaden Daniels it's a twig, and if Cam Newton took the punishment that he did and that body got banged up, I mean, this one is not built for sustained success or sustained survival against the NFL if he's going to run that many times. So there's things out there that Jaden Daniels can take a step back or get hurt, and all of a sudden the Commanders are in a situation where it's like, whoa, we're not as far along as we thought. Now, in a vacuum and everything, if it's like Madden and you turn the injuries off and you turn everything off forward, yeah, the Commanders have a high ceiling. Anytime you have a top quarterback in your division, and anytime you have a top quarterback in your league, in your conference, you're going to have an opportunity here. And so that's what I think people are expecting from Daniels. But Tyson, there is a real scenario here where the Commanders are just the Commanders, and this thing was the best they got, and it's going to be a while of futility.
Whatever. I kind of hope so, but part of me hopes not too. The Eagles fan in me is like, good, back to the cellar with you. But the football fan in me wants them to go continue to get better. And one of the ways they're going to do that, Brad, like this defensive line had so many resources dumped into it over the last decade, and they all ended up either stinking or getting traded in the cases of some of the guys, or simply being unable to stay on the field. Mm-hmm. But this defensive line has to be better, and that's like mission number one. If I'm the Washington Commanders, is offensive and defensive line, and that puts them with about 30 other teams in the NFL. So they do have the ability to be like, hey, we have Jaden Daniels here. You guys can come play with us, compete for championships and that stuff. Is that going to be enough of a selling point with Josh Harris taking over? Because we've seen time and time again, like these top free agents don't want to go to Washington until their career's over and they can Albert Haynesworth $100 million out of somebody. But they got to get better in the trenches, because you can get by a banged up Detroit Lions team, in the playoffs, but you can't get by the best in the conference, and that's Philadelphia right now. And it's probably going to be Detroit when they're healthy. And there's a couple other NFC teams with really good offensive and defensive lines. And they got lightning in a bottle, and they had a magical run. But reality sets in quick and fast in the NFL. You can ask the San Francisco 49ers all about it.
Yeah, 100%, Tyson. And with that, the good thing is, Daniel Jeremiah says 27 of his top 50 players or something like that is defensive linemen. So
skill positions suck.
So I think they're going to have a good pick there if they want to go for anybody, just even after this good season. But that's going to transition to me to getting out of here. Like, subscribe, and share the show. But we're big draft heads. I mean, we're following along this stuff. We're going to have a ton of content coming for you. I know, like, a lot of people out there maybe not be interested in this NFC or the Super Bowl. Oh, the Chiefs, all the Eagles, whatever. So we'll have you covered for off-season stuff. Don't you worry. But if you're still ready to make some cash, if you're still ready for the big game, we got you covered on that too. We're going to preview everything coming out later this week into next week. We got our huge Super Bowl prop extravaganza, as we always call it. I think it's our 4th year running now, Tyson. So we're starting to heat up in the playoffs here. I think our familiarity with the Eagles and just the Chiefs do this one thing. I think we could actually make a little cash on this. But that's a long-winded way of saying stay connected with us. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the show. Go listen to our AFC reaction that we just did. And then later this week, we'll have some fun stuff coming for you. So stay tuned to that, and we'll talk to you guys then. Peace.